Welcome back to American Agenda. Workers from big corporations like Walmart and Amazon are planning a mass walkout tomorrow, demanding safer working conditions and full disclosure on the numbers of positive cases in their companies. They're also fighting for hazard pay and protective equipment. Employees all over are planning to call in sick or step out during their lunch breaks, while some union workers are planning on striking together outside of warehouse facilities. And here to weigh in on this, for what some say could be a reopening, and it is actually happening all over the country, as we've been talking about, is our A-plus panel of the day. HerMoney.com editor-in-chief Kathryn Tuggle and Mastering Money author and former SEC Division of Investment Manager Director Norm Champ. Welcome to both of you. Norm, we'll just start with you. This strike that's planned for tomorrow, does it point to mounting tension and frustration in our nation?
Well, I think also in the lack of clarity that everyone is feeling. So these workers, of course, are on the front line filling orders that have kept so many households going during the shelter in place. But it speaks to a broader point, which is none of us know what it's going to look like to go back to work, and what are the conditions going to be under which we go back to work. Is personal protective equipment going to be provided by employers or by employees? How are these things going to work? If there was one message, I think right now to state and local governments, it would be, let's get out some clear guidelines, whatever they are, and let people start to try to work with them and see if they work for people individually. I think what you're seeing here is whatever's being done is not working for these employees.
Kathryn, you work with a lot of people that either own small businesses or they have worked for businesses as employees, and I was curious what the sensibility is right now, what their mood is, whether they are getting money from the government and they're okay right now, or whether, as we see food banks lining up, whether they're getting desperate just for the basics.
I would say about 10% of the small business owners that I've spoken with have applied for the Paycheck Protection Program and have received funding. And I think that what we're seeing now with the workers at Amazon and Instacart and Target and the planned strike, they are expressing the sentiment that millions of us are worried about, which is how safe will it be for us when we do come back to work? And to your point about the small businesses, they are probably least able to offer a safe work environment right now because they may have a smaller space, they may have a smaller staff, and they don't have the money that some of these larger corporations do to supply masks to every single person. So this is the same question that we've been asking for 6 weeks, which is, nobody really knows what this is going to look like in the coming weeks. But those 31 states that are reopening are going to be hopefully a litmus test for the rest of the states that are being a little more cautious.
Norm, you mentioned clear guidelines, both for employers and employees, but then we also have to look at clear guidelines for consumers as well. We just watched a story on people going into hair salons, having to get their temperatures taken. What are some of those guidelines that you'd like to see established?
So I've read about a lot of different proposals. You're seeing one-way traffic in aisles in the supermarket. Stores have put up plexiglass so that there is a barrier. Are we going to have to wear masks or not? Right now in New York, the idea is you have to wear masks. So I think there are a variety of options, but we need to make sure that they are going to work. I think obviously the worst case would be we get some of these returns and then there is a spike again, and that could be very harmful for people's confidence. I would also stress, I think for individual employees and for all Americans, this is a good time to think about, we have so much uncertainty on jobs and what we're going to get jobs back. Time to think about cutting expenses, keeping expenses under control, and just because it's just not clear how long it's going to last. So I would urge people to think about their own spending and conserving to make sure that they can survive for the longer term.
And Norm, that's almost the definition of recession thinking that we were just talking about with Kathryn in the last hour.
It is. I mean, we're going to have, clearly we've already got, growth is already down. So, we're in a tough period. But I do think for workers that aren't sure when the next paycheck is coming, yes, they can collect unemployment, but I'm always an advocate in personal finance world of just thinking about your expenses. And I think it's important for people to keep an eye on that expense side of the ledger right now. given the unknowns and we just don't have a clear picture of this return to work.
Kathryn, there is just a lot that's hard right now and a lot of things that we can't do, but there are some things that we can do. So if someone has lost work, what advice do you have for them right now? Offer some hope.
Yeah, we have the additional $600 a week on unemployment checks that will be there through the end of July, which gives you a little cushion there to hopefully find something by July. And we have seen that companies like Amazon, Walmart, some of those very companies that do have striking workers, they are hiring. So if you are able to snag one of those jobs and you are interested in one of those jobs just to fill the gaps, they are there.
Quick question, Norm. There's a lot of money being spent by the government fiscally and offered monetarily from the Fed to keep the economy going. Consequently, the stock market's been doing pretty well, really, all things considered. But is the economy doing that well? Should we be concerned about where the stock market is right now?
So there's always this dislocation. Stock market tends to be a predictor, generally, sort of looks farther down the road. So they're looking at all this liquidity and saying, hey, that's great for assets, stocks will be bid up. I've been looking back at some of the historic downturns through history. And I hope that we get a V-shaped recovery out of this. As you said earlier, everyone goes back to work and spends. I'm a little concerned if we can't get these businesses, if we start losing businesses, we're going to lose some for sure. We lose too many. I am getting a little concerned about whether we're going to have a longer term slowdown. Has been that pattern in some of these really sudden. If you go back to the really sudden events like this, sometimes it does stretch out longer. So I know the government's standing behind it. They've clearly made, they're going to do whatever it takes. Well, hopefully that works and we get a quick recovery.
All right. Well, oil is rebounding. I guess that must mean somebody thinks we're going to be burning oil again. That's a good thing. Kathryn Tuggle, Norm Champ, thank you so much for joining us. More coverage of coronavirus crisis after this.